Do you have a lifelong hatred of Chad, Brad and Clayton for cacking you in the school playground? Do your palms sweat profusely as you wait to order your sandwich at Subway? Do you call your guitar your best friend, although you only practice the same lick once a day and fill the rest of your time with popcorn content and TV static? Well, Midwest Emo is the perfect genre for you. Midwest Emo is categorised by twinkly, arpeggiated and distinct guitar riffs alongside a singing style that is indistinguishable from the noise heard immediately after your cousin falls off the rope swing. Midwest Emo took the anger of DC hardcore and immediately nullified it with depression and heartbreak, creating a sound that somehow, as a British kid born in the 2000s, makes me nostalgic about a small town in the USA. Midwest Emo is commonly associated with math rock, which is a genre characterised by complex rhythmic structures, odd time signatures, bait tunings, extended chords, and lyrical content includes, but is not limited to, reminiscing about the perfect summer when in hindsight all you did was play League of Legends, begging for a text back from Stacy, and listing in detail every reason why a woman shouldn't date you. But where did this all come from? What led to the creation of this beautiful mess of a genre? Well, much like most pits of degeneracy, Midwest Emo's development as a genre is pretty much a straight line from punk, specifically the DC hardcore scene. This particular scene of hardcore punk was directly influenced by bands like the Ramones, who would have tour dates around the area. Before too long, every basketball court in Washington was filled with sweaty, bold men screaming about how sick it was being straight edge, whilst launching a disgusting amalgamation of power chords and blast beats directly into tinnitus-filled eardrums. Bands like Minor Threat and Bad Brains were at the forefront of this genre, maxing out distortion, spamming power chords, and giving white Christian mothers their fourth music-related heart attack in the last 3 years. But punk is not emo, and emo is not punk, so how was emo born out of this scene? It would only take one group of down bad teenagers to lay the groundwork of what would eventually become emo. Rites of Spring's first and only self-titled EP released in 1995 would do the unthinkable. It would take punk and slow it down. This combined with softer tones and
emotional
lyrics, which focused on personal pain and suffering rather than just attitude and rage towards the world. This approach to punk was dubbed emo-core or emotional hardcore by fans, only to the dismay of individuals who worked on the Rites of Spring project, as they would proclaim the genre name to be the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life and the most retarded term ever. Their argument highlighted that all music aims to be emotional, so the label shouldn't be used for just one genre. Regardless of the criticism and honestly outright disgust from the creators, the label stuck, and in the next few years it will be used to describe bands such as Embrace, Grey Matter and Husker Du, which would turn out to be some pretty influential bands. Some of these bands alongside bands like Melvins and Black Sabbath would go on to influence grunge, which would become very popular and mainstream thanks to this very sexy individual. This allowed alternative music genres to come to the forefront of the culture and not be contained in a singular location or subculture. Emo would hit the West Coast in the early 90s and spread out from there. Multiple local scenes would form insular from each other, all with their own ideas of what emo actually is. The only scene that's important to this video is Midwest. We'll come back to that later. Notable artists from this time period include Sunny Day Real Estate, Cap'n Jazz and Jawbreaker. Shortly after this, in the early 2000s, the public's perception of emo would quickly turn into this.
What the heck?
As pop-punk bands like My Chemical Romance, Green Day and Paramore would become more popular than Okay, let's go back to the cozy and safe Midwest. In the mid-90s, the second wave of emo was well underway with bands like Cap'n Jazz, Braid and Mineral, crafting the Midwest emo sound, combining math rock elements with the emo sound of the bands beforehand. And just like that, Midwest emo was born. Unknowingly to them, Midwest emo was about to birth their favourite depressed child. American Football would release their self-titled masterpiece in 1999. The album would combine teen angst with musical experimentation to create a truly unique project. Band members would actually record the album in the final days of college, stamping something very bittersweet and strangely familiar into the album. These themes would be supplemented by arpeggiated guitars, complicated song structure, and whack time signatures, creating something that sounds more like jazz than hardcore. Although the album was extremely epic, on release American Football would only receive minor success on college radio, and as agreed, the band broke up and went their separate ways. It was time to hang up the flannel shirt, take off the white Converse, and leave the scratched up Telecaster in storage. Midwest emo was officially dead.
Psych!
Even the smallest bands could inspire countless musicians, and as time went on, these bands would be inspiring to many upcoming artists. This would reach a boiling point due to the internet. The internet completely changed how we view and consume culture as a species. completely changing the way music is discovered and distributed. For every nerdy 90s band, there was an even more disgusting basement dweller that was willing to stop at nothing to increase his percentage on Obscurify. The Midwest emo bands of the 90s were suddenly thrust towards a completely new generation of people. Almost 20 years on, and not much had changed. They were still nerdy teenagers who had an urge to whine about their terrible love life while simultaneously flex their big brain, high IQ finger tapping skills, resulting in the 2010s producing bands like Sports, Chinese Football, Free Throw, Wait a second. Why do so many Midwest bands have sports related names? There's no way this actually appeals to them. It was time for the Midwest emo revival. Bands like Algernon Caldwell and Snowing would forefront this movement in the underground, taking inspiration from the second wave of emo in the 90s. They would ramp up the cringe, using even twinklier riffs, whining in a higher pitch than ever before, and even introducing brass instrumentation that was briefly explored by American football beforehand. This revival quickly diversified. The unavoidable plague that is pop punk injected influence into the scene with bands like The Hotelier and Modern Baseball. Indie would slither its way into influence with bands like Tiger's Jaw and Sorority Noise, and post-punk would kick down the door with bands like Brave Little Abacus and The World is a Beautiful Place and I'm No Longer Afraid to Die. And that brings us to the present day. Midwest emo is arguably as relevant now as it's ever been. The scene is still rich with new talent and projects, and the genre is revered by boomers, zoomers and coomers. Now, you may think you're prepared for your Midwest emo journey. I've got your books already, your lunch is packed, but you're still naked. How the fuck are you going to be a true Midwest emo without any clothes? Midwest emo fashion differs from the styles of genres beforehand, mainly because it's fucking boring. Midwest emo musicians are often seen prioritizing comfort over whatever the fuck this is. Beige trousers, flannel shirts and thick rimmed glasses allow you to blend into whatever anxiety-inducing public scenario you might be in, while still being able to act pretentious whilst bloating out words like Normcore and Pinkerton to the local goth guy. So what lies ahead for Midwest emo? I truly believe Midwest will never die. It has built a loyal fan base that are oftentimes actively contributing to the culture in positive ways. Even so, the sound of Midwest emo will continue to feel nostalgic and warm for edgy teenagers, even when the charts are filled with exclusively hyperpop, Merzbow, and other music that appeals to the ADHD of stibbing children. Midwest emo will always have a place. It may disappear for a few years and fall back into obscurity, but when you least expect it, when you're in your room staring at your wall, down horrendously, Midwest will return to make you feel even fucking worse.